You are listening to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa. This show is dedicated to those who live and love from the heart in infinite ways. In today's episode, we will discuss, share, gain insights, and get clarity on the wisdom and teachings of the mystic and seer Almin, as well as discover more about the miraculous healing modality called Belvaspata. Your host for this show is Paul.
The Albatross. Through the star-speckled night, till the dawn's naked light, a lone mariner watches the sea. Straining his eyes, wind-blown and tired, he searches across uncharted seas. The watch he keeps while others sleep, perched on the mast's dizzy heights. The adventure of the quest, at a queen's behest, like fire in his blood, burns bright. Silently on deck, far below, sailors emerge in the dawn's golden glow, to toil another day on the endless sea. No hope do they show, it died long ago, in the storms and wind and the merciless heat. Then a miracle appears. An albatross draws near, a blessing bestowed from the cloudless sky. With the eyes of a sage and a masterful gaze, beside the mast he flies. Above the ship he soars, an unspoken promise of distant shores. The mariners welcome him with song. No longer alone and yearning for home, the sea is where they belong. High on the mast, a mariner cries, calls to his mates as land he spies. Like a dark cloud on the horizon it lies. As jubilation erupts below, a spice-laden breeze begins to blow, perfumed with flowers from exotic isles. With billowing sails and rations of ale, the ship sails to the land. Forgotten the treasures they were sent to find, the honors of men they had left behind, just the sapphire sea and the golden sand.
Hello everyone, I'm Paul. Thank you for joining us today for Radio Belvaspata, South Africa's show for the 2nd of March 2017. Thank you if you're listening live. Thank you if you're listening to the podcast version. We hope to inspire you. We hope to share so much with you tonight. The mystic and seer Almin tells us that the balance between self-determination, freedom of choice, and surrendered trust has always been a mystery to light workers. However, there are two sides of the coin of energy management. Opposing life leaks energy. Not contributing our unique perspective to life, our greatest gift to the one expressing as the many, fails to generate energy. It is therefore a draining attitude to be solely passive in the face of unfolding existence, rather than to understand the revealed insights and to embrace them as our own. And that's our opening wisdom from the mystic and seer Almin. Our lives, our bodies, our connections, our relationships with not only others, but also within ourselves are changing dramatically day by day, night through night. Our perceptions, our insights, our energy are all adjusting. No longer do we try to just be part of the journey. We now need to know that we are now the journey itself. As density dissolves, we are having to process more and more subtle, coded information in our bodies, in our cellular memories, and in our DNA, which is consistently and constantly unfolding into newness. This show today is all about understanding the process. We hope to inspire you. We hope that our light family around the world will take this moment just to look deep within themselves and recognize who you are and not what you are. We are an incorruptible, resurrected master being, guiding the ship of life towards the new shore, which is a place of undiscovered bounty, love, abundance, and light. We are not only the albatross, we are now the ship, we are now the ocean, we are now the stars, we are now the land, we are everything. Welcome to our show today. It's entitled Achieving Oneness, really through dissolving density. We've got some great comments and some audio from the Seer Almin, and we're going to be working with some of the teachings from around the world of other teachers, and we're going to be looking at how we can prepare the body for high magic as we dissolve density. So much on offer for us as we go through the show tonight, talking about eclipses, talking about the energy levels. We're going to be able to work so deeply with the logic, the identity mind, about what is important, what is not important to us. We're going to talk about energetic corridors. We're going to talk about the individual work and how everything has just got to be loved. I had a conversation with my fellow Master Diane on WhatsApp just an hour or so ago, and I was just saying that the whole process is really like a diary that unfolds for each one of us day by day in our lives, and yet our choices are there to find beauty within. But still at this moment for me, it is an experience where I have to consistently work on all of that and recognize that there is a difference, that there is a choice that has to be made at any one particular point. And have you noticed for yourself how time no longer exists? I know we've been speaking about this a little bit on some of our shows and some of our episodes, but time literally has gone. We are now in March already. I was just saying to someone earlier today that if we haven't made plans for December, we may as well not bother because it will already have gone. But all we literally have is our day and our night in terms of points of reference for us about where we are and what it is that we feel we could or should be doing. Sleep patterns are completely out of it. The bodies are incredibly sore. In certain places, hips and backs are once again really taking the brunt. But let's discuss this tonight as we go on to talk about the aspect of dissolving density. Almin says that the struggle through this density of life in ego identification builds the strength to go beyond. And I know some of the teachings that I used to do before I discovered these wonderful worlds of pearls and wisdom that Almin really brings to the fore for us is that ego identification was the enemy. And I used to oppose it and press it down and suppress it and not realize it was actually such an ally in the inner work of spirituality and ascension. So I always love getting these pearls of wisdom from the Seer Almin, because literally just changes the concepts, and then you begin to realize the programming that you have been working with, thinking that it's the truth, thinking that it's a reality which you can work with. But all of these things are going as we're going along. So Almin tells us that density represents both our incubation chamber and our prison. It is that which polarizes the building blocks of life through value judgment, and it's the belief systems that uphold the delay between cause and effect. The reality of high magic is the reality of boundlessness, in which intent manifests very speedily and where there is no place for belief systems. The body is not accustomed to this reality, and so it must be prepared for it. When we look at some of these things and we go a little bit deeper into these particular comments, Almin tells us that in order for a resurrected being to become a carrier of the white light, constant changes need to happen in the physical body. The components of violet, of golden, and magenta create white light. The qualities of the white light are constantly changing in correspondence to the input of new information received every moment. The components of the white light, the violet, the gold, and magenta, are constantly changing. If the body, as an incorruptible resurrected matter, does not change with them, then it will not be able to process the information, which will cause severe pain in the body. There's a new webinar coming up called Dissolving Density on this weekend, but we'll come back to you once we've listened to the Seer Almin talking about how we should be preparing the body for high magic, and subtitled Dissolving Density.
What is density? And why is it necessary to eliminate it or reduce it? And then the other question is, how? This workshop will deal with those questions, but to introduce it, let me explain. The life that lies beyond resurrection, which is a very major step to accomplish, requires preparation now, within the stages of resurrection and a little before, which is where our light family is. Because the life beyond, which I have called the life of the immaculate white light, I have described it as being like tachyon resources, and that it is like liquid diamonds, and all things change to that when you create for yourself that reality. This is area in which life has not yet evolved into, that is becoming activated as we make these preparations. The density issue is very pertinent to preparing for that life, because that life is boundless. Density, as I will define it for you, only occurs in a life that has boundaries. So we have already discussed that the building blocks of life, whatever they may be, depends on what reality you're in. But the building blocks of life in godhood, for the average man in ego identification, even the very advanced building blocks of resurrection, which overcome the dual construction that most building blocks have in lower realities. These are moving. They move how? They move by bouncing between the boundaries of your reality. When you are in a boundaryless or boundless life, they are not bouncing off anything. And so, whatever movement there is, it just keeps moving into eternity. And that is not really something that brain can fathom at all. It's not still, but it isn't linearly moving between 2 points. So the brain is not accustomed to that. But in that way, there is very little density. Density can be defined 2 different ways. It can be defined as a traffic jam of the building blocks of life. Because the more they are bound to each other, let's look at ego identification, for instance. The polarity in ego identification, which is where we started out with our Belvaspata. Belvaspata evolves with us, but it says that opposite light and frequency attract. The building blocks of that life is made of light and frequency. They are connected to each other in a little wobbly cross, a little cross that the vertical axis is light and the horizontal one is frequency. Those have a positive and a negative pole from one point of that little line to the next. Now, there are other little building blocks with the same thing, and their negative side of their wobbly cross is attracted to the other positive side. And all these building blocks bind to each other and form ropes. And these ropes are what I call a traffic jam. And they consist well, let us rather say they are caused by belief systems and value judgments. Value judgments is what creates polarity. Belief systems make something right or wrong, good or bad. So belief systems make value judgments, and value judgments polarize the building blocks of life, which then stick together and form strings. And if you recall, in duality consciousness, we were on a disk of life. The cosmic life was like a disk moving round and round. Well, it had to move through these strings. Our awareness had to move through these strings of sub-quantum particles. That was an opposition, and so life became stronger. There's no accident to any of this. Life becomes stronger because it's like the little chicken that has to fight its way out of the egg to gain the strength to be able to stand once the egg breaks. Or the struggle of the butterfly to emerge from the cocoon with sticky substance to its wings. The struggle through this density of life in ego identification builds the strength to go beyond. When you leave resurrection, you already are poking your head out of that incubation chamber, out of the egg. When you emerge beyond into the incorruptible white light, boundless, limitless existence, that's when the eggshell has gone. The density is no more, which made your incubation chamber, and in fact for a while, your prison. So now you understand a little bit more of what density was and why it isn't there when you move beyond. Now let's look at resurrection. Resurrection has a different shape to its awareness particle. It is a single sphere, and within the sphere, the frequency and the light are combined in a tonal luminosity. They become integrated into one substance, even though they have their distinctive qualities. The qualities are in cooperation. Density there is simply the belief systems that might still be held onto. A belief system of aging and death, even though you are a resurrected being, will create the building blocks in your environment to make it so. Whatever you believe, so it is. So the density here is more a question of old programs held in the frequency component and interpreted by the electrical component within the building blocks of life. What density does, its effect, is that it delays cause and effect. The world of high magic that you are aspiring to, in actual fact, closes the gap between cause and effect. And it's only belief systems that would still delay it. For instance, if you get a cut, hold it together and know it can heal immediately, and so it will. Assume that it will take days or weeks to repair itself, so it will. So the density in resurrection is self-made. And the density in ego identification is collectively made by man. So in resurrection, you may rise above the masses, living a life of graceful unfolding, and eventually evolve a very large evolutionary step beyond, which is the boundless life, where the high magic manifests intent very speedily. Beloved ones, this is a worthy topic and very timely for us to study. Let us eliminate as much as we can and prepare for graceful effortless unfolding.
You're back in studio. I'm your host, Paul, for this episode of Radio Belvaspata, South Africa's show entitled Achieving Oneness Through Dissolving Density. There we were listening to the mystic and the great seer Almeen as she explained about the aspects of density. Really incredible to know that the incubation chamber that we've all been experiencing has created these most incredible moments of realization. And me, again, just for myself, I have to speak from my own perspective, from my own experiences, and just look at that in terms of what I'm seeing going on around me. But the conversations I'm having with many people are much the same. And yet I still see some people trapped in the old paradigms and some of the old belief systems, the values that they have at that particular time, and I'm seeing the value judgments all there. But so be it. We understand that the incubation chamber has now given birth to it, and as we move into the state of bringing the great high magic of white light into the self, we're going to see so much that's going on. Many people I know are moving on in their lives. They're not even wondering why anymore. They used to be stuck in, is this the right thing? Is they right or wrong? A lot of people that I'm seeing, including myself, are just saying enough is enough with the situation, not going to do this any longer. Although I do agree that the doorway that we are walking through perhaps is a bit of a journey to actually go and experience, but it's absolutely in line with what Almeen was saying there, that density delays cause and effect. And if we want this life of a graceful unfolding, we need to understand that density can only reside in a body that has boundaries. So keep your eye on the target here for yourselves, folks, and move into what you know is right for yourself. And again, I think as we go towards the end of the show, there's some beautiful wisdom from the Seer Almeen, where she tells us about the roles that we have to make. But everything is in these incredible ascension attitudes of love, of praise, of gratitude and trust, which we talk a lot about on this particular show. But these are the cornerstones of Belvaspata healing, because at the end of the day, the four aspects of them bring light and frequency into complete balance within the self, and each component of those brings a masculine and feminine balance, which creates an androgynous process where light and frequency then brings absolute balance and highlights these sub-personalities for us to work with. Density delays cause and effect. I'm really enjoying it. What we have to also understand at the moment is that the electrical component that Almeen was talking about there was really about light. Just really look at it as if we're standing on the stage of life, and these big spotlights are on us, and light is shining so deeply on us at this moment, in order for us to see what it is that needs to be dissolved within the self before we can actually step into this process of graceful unfolding and just accept the resurrected state that we are in, and also allowing this huge, incredible, beautiful white light, which is a combination of the other lights that was being mentioned within all of that. So move on, do what you need to do along with yourself. That is our suggestion, and the only reason we're suggesting it because we're seeing it for ourselves. It's we don't have boundaries any longer for many things along the way. Those have dissolved, but at the same time we also don't seem to have tolerance for many issues and problems around us where people are holding on to things. And we understand it's a doorway. We are walking from one train carriage to another, and it can be incredibly rocky as we go through all of those things, but absolutely incredible. Now, to help us through this process, this coming Saturday, March the 4th, there is an incredible small little webinar coming up for us, and that is a free webinar by the Seer Almeen, and that is available for registration on almeendiary.com, and also if you go to Almeen's website, spiritualjourneys.com, journeys.com, and you can book for that free online webinar It's a mini-series that is being produced, or a mini-webinar, I should say, by the Seer Almin, and helping us through this particular process at this moment in time. So, the dream itself has refined the cosmos in its incubation stages. The tools of the dream were space and time. These can now be released with gratitude, and that's the Seer Almin. Actually, tonight we could just have a show with Almin Wisdom and put a few comments in between, and literally we would have a show that would unfold in terms of that absolute clarity of the wisdom that is brought in by her each and every day. It's also amazing to listen to these small classes and discourses and discussions by Almin, because it shows you where you're at the whole time. Very often what we do is we go into processes where we forget that, we are part of the whole, we are part of the collective. We are all moving into this incredible state of high magic. It's another reality altogether. And as we create this state or this reality of boundlessness, I think is the word, then we've got to look at that intent that manifests very speedily for us, and that the only thing that's holding us back is our particular belief systems. And again, if the body is taking some smacks as you're going along, let's discuss this, because we've been researching some process that come up. There's something called the current eclipse corridor, and this is written by Andrew Martin, and he's based in Seattle, and he describes life as we see it at this particular moment in time. His website is called thelightduns.com, thelightduns.com. Fascinating insight. But let's go through some of this and what he has to say. And then, again, we don't want to highlight the issues and problems. We don't want to create a tribe or nation of that particular process around us. But it's good to know that as you're experiencing all of these things, that for you it is very, very accurate, as well as it is for me and for everybody else. And with understanding, we can place a different perspective around it, and therefore we can then move on. Andrew Martin tells us that none of us will emerge unchanged by the energies of this eclipse corridor which is now happening. It was not just the 2 eclipses in February, but also the largest 6-month passage that culminates with 2 eclipses this coming August. It is not always required for us to understand what is happening at the level of logic or identity of mind. If the why is important, then we'll obviously be given that too. I, Andrew Martin, am sharing this info with the intention of shedding some light on what's shifting right now and over the next 6 months or so. Much of what is happening is occurring at levels that are far outside the realm of the mind's understanding. Often we are feeling our way into it in spite of what may seem logical or rational. More than ever before, our innate connection to our own guidance will take us through these uncharted waters. Success is guaranteed. It is written. How we choose to get there is what we are writing right now. As always, take what resonates and then leave the rest. There are major nervous system upgrades and rewrites as the Schumann resonance is spiking to levels that are higher than ever been recorded in our history. The eclipses and full moon of February kick off a 6-month period, propelling us to deeper levels of self-understanding that is capped off by 2 more eclipses in August. The magnetic field of the Earth is shifting. Astrological alignments that haven't been seen in many years are occurring, including the discovery of 7 new planets, by the way. This tidal wave of energy that we as the collective have been building up as we begin to unite in ways we never have before are all adding up to be a huge game changer. There are new levels of awareness because our individual inner work has given us access to planes of being we haven't inhabited as humans in a long time. As always, this is relative to where we are individually at any given moment. Of course, one person's awakening is another person's day-to-day normal awareness. Comparison and judgment of ourselves and others as more or less awake is unnecessary and only leads to suffering. We are waking up to our own unique divine blueprint, which has nothing to do with another person's. This is about our orientation with our own truth. We are the only ones who know what our truth feels like, and it is our sovereign duty to honor that. There's no wriggle room any longer to continue to indulge our fears, our insecurities, or doubts. We certainly may still have the experience of those fear-based emotions, but we can no longer allow them to hold us back. Whatever it is that has been keeping us stuck, whether consciously or unconsciously, is coming to the surface right now. and it will not move until it is acknowledged, loved, and released. When you curse it, you claim it. When you love it, you set it free. The very thing that we may be afraid to face, to accept, or do is the very thing that will untether us and allow us to climb higher. Sovereignty is our divine birthright, and we can no longer cling to the small self out of fear of expansion or loss of the familiar. The time has come for us to claim what we came here to do. The concept of raising our vibration oftentimes keeps us locked in struggle, as if there is a wrong way or a right way. Ultimately, there is only the way that works for us. We have the tools and the knowledge, and now we are tasked with figuring out our own way. It's like a kitchen that is stocked with every possible ingredient. We may not need or want them all, so we just have to use what is appropriate for our own requirements and be in the moment. So there's certainly things that can help us get clearer and maintain our energetic clarity. Things like healing, sound bowls, salt baths, crystal therapy, nature walks, purifying our diets, detoxing our bodies, etc. The truth is that the most profound way to elevate ourselves energetically is to go within and acknowledge the stuff that is asking for our love and attention. The increase of our vibration happens as a result of our willingness to do our own inner work. We can't get around it. The sticky, shadowy aspects of the self, of the collective, must be loved and shown as much compassion as the bright, shiny, beautiful aspects of the self or the collective. The only way up is in. Don't forget to laugh, sing, dance, and move. Spend time with those you love, get a massage, cook a great meal. Take time to enjoy the pure, simple things. Remember that the chakric system is also changing. The transformation of the chakric system is in full swing for many of us. The traditional 7 main chakras are no longer necessary as we expand our light body. They are now an outdated model. In our previous form of dense 3D human, the partitioning of our energy flow was necessary for the energy to move through our dense selves. Now that we are transforming more and more into our light body selves, we see the chakras shifting too. The lower 3 chakras, which are the root, the sacrum, and the solar plexus, are morphing into a singular energy center, which we could perhaps call the center of manifestation. The heart and throat are merging into the center of expression, and the third eye and the crown chakras have merged into the center of communications. I feel that we will continue to see our energy center shift as we eventually expand into a singular energy center, which will be the shift into the light body self. Those who are currently on this path of service may see themselves being called in a new direction. Our work is changing, our practices are changing, and our clientele certainly changing too. We are seeing relationships dissolve, and we may also be moving geographically. We are shedding our skins like the sacred serpent, even if what we've been doing has been serving us quite well for a long time. If there's another level of awareness we have access to now, then we must step forward into it. We won't necessarily have to give up everything, but we must be willing to give up everything. If we have been keeping our spiritual work on the sidelines or deep in the closet, we may suddenly find that everything comes to a screeching halt until we begin to integrate it into our central focus. Family, romantic, business relationships are all undergoing transformation. We cannot hold ourselves back in the hopes that those we love may catch up or awaken. Many relationships were not meant to last beyond this point. We must honor the truth that everyone on the planet at this time has their own unique path to walk. They must be given the space for their own unique expression, just as we were. We can no longer set ourselves on fire to keep another warm. Clinginess, desperation, codependency, dishonesty, denial, victimhood, etc. will all be brought up front and center. We are no longer able to diminish ourselves or live trying to please another or receive approval from others. We may also find ourselves connecting in divine partnerships. New relationships or seeing relationships go to a deeper level of connection, and these will be occurring for many of us. Many new leaders are emerging. Established lightworkers and spiritual communities are being called to challenge their own perceptions of what is acceptable or correct. The old ways of doing things may no longer be relevant. The truth is always truth of the moment, but the way that we access it, receive it, and express it will change. Dogma is dogma no matter where it comes from. We do not require approval to do the work we came here to do. The need for approval is the death of truth. Many of us are expanding into new areas of work and are intuitively creating new modalities. Seeking approval from the external world will always limit what we are creating. There is no blueprint for what we are doing, so to use the old model as a measure of success is completely pointless. The time itself has collapsed, and the only reason anything ever exists is that Source seeks expansion through experience. The death and collapse of the old is required for the emergence of the new. Destruction and creation are two sides of the same coin. Now, as we move into the phase of transformation beyond healing, we are exiting the duality cycle of death and rebirth and see that everything is always evolving and expanding. Creating and living outside of time is inevitable, as linear time is also a construct of the old. As we remember how to create in the eternal now, we see that the destruction of the old and the emergence of the new is a simultaneous experience. We no longer require the sluggish, linear experience of the death cycle, followed by a lengthy rebirth cycle. We see this playing out on the world stage as those who would keep us locked in the dark are finding that their attempts to do so result in an almost spontaneous emergence of the very thing they were trying to prevent or resist. The time for shenanigans is quickly coming to an end. Meditation isn't required daily. Find yourself being in a meditative state most of the time. Many people are giving up coffee, meat, and almost all sugar due to their bodies physically rejecting them. This is a combination of energy work that is wholly intuitive. There may be no name for it at the moment, but it's a combination of so much insight, breath work, and sound work. And of course, what we have to do is add in here is some of the process that we are talking about as we work through the teachings and modalities that are available to us here. So no area of life has gone untouched by this current corridor of energy. And that was Andrew Martin from thelightduns.com. You can visit his website if you wish, and that's the latest amount of work that he's giving to us. And fantastic. We need to look at some of the details of Belvaspata healing here. Next week we want to go into some of the details of what these ascension attitudes mean to us and how we can put them into practice, of how we can actually work with the ascension attitudes, as we spoke earlier, of things like love, praise, gratitude, and trust. So really incredible information going in and working. Let's have a look. I think we're having some technical problems according to Nico, so we're going to have to just work with what we've got at this moment in time, and I hope that it's coming through clearly. Let's go through to another particular process here. I wanted to play some information about Belvaspata at this moment in time, just to help us through the particular understandings of where we're at. But I'd like to discuss this aspect of a healer called Matt Licata. We've spoken about him before in the show, and he's giving us some more insight as to the current status quo. So if you're being a bit overwhelmed by all this information, go slow. You can repeat the program, you can repeat the show as we're going along. But let's listen to what Matt Licata has to say, because he says at times the exhaustion can be overwhelming. You know, today I did find myself actually staggering at one point, and I put my hand out to support myself against a wall and had to take a few deep breaths. And then as I was steady, then I could move on. And I was fine after that, but I just needed a few moments to do some of that inner work. Very, very interesting. Matt Licata tells us that the tide journey of becoming something other than what you are is where we're now at. All the practices, the techniques, they're manifesting the self-improvement. They have left you on the ground, burning up in the longing and yearning for rest. But this is no ordinary movement or moment. For it is out of this holy mess that the most radical invitation can finally be heard, to trust in the flow of your immediate experience, exactly as it is, and to participate in the raging truth that nothing is wrong with you and that you are already whole. It is this act of radical non-doing that will untangle the spell of self-abandonment once and for all. Not the non-doing of the mind, which is oriented in passivity, in resignation and failure, but that of the heart, which is alive with qualities of warmth, creativity, curiosity, and compassion. The miracle is unlocked as you realize that you no longer need to transform, to shift, to change, or even heal your experience, but only to fully participate in it, surrounding it with presence and with kindness. It is by way of this alchemy that its essence and nature is revealed. Within the field of what you are, you may be astonished to discover that even your most erupting neurosis, surging triggers and hooks, elaborate ways of self-protection, and penetrating fears of intimacy are revealed to be the nature of wisdom itself, formed by the intelligence of an out-of-control sort of grace. Inside each and every cell of your open, luminous body is a pathway of transmutation awaiting your participation. Sadness, disappointment, joy, hopelessness, bliss, contentment, and fear, each equally an emissary of the beloved, appearing as light in the darkness to reveal one of the qualities of love as it pours into this world. It may seem like such a simple commitment, but in practice it is a revolution. It will reveal that your life has never and could never be a problem in need of fixing, that you were never and could never be broken, and that you need not leave your immediate embodied experience ever again in order to enter the sacred world, for what you are is already unbearably holy. You need no longer seek some other state of consciousness, for that which is here now is outrageously consecrated with pure spirit. You are being asked to surrender the ancient path of abandoning yourself and to practice a wild intimacy with all things. This is your birthright and is the foundation of the rest you seek. Stay close, and with a heart and with eyes wide open, the veil will part and the revelation will appear as it is. Right, so we're going to have to go for a short little break. We'll reconnect in 1 or 2 minutes as we try and look it up, as we have a blank screen. We don't know if we're actually broadcasting at this moment. We're hoping that we are. Please bear with us if there are some of these issues, and we'll be back as soon as we can reconnect.